Welcome back, Carly, part 2. I just want to say everybody that reached out to me after part 1 with the book has loved it. Like
Yay!
I said,
Well, it's because we're soul sisters and we found each other and we're very excited about it.
oh my gosh, yeah, and just how that's how open you are. I think that was the one thing people were like, oh my gosh, that's, those are really hard things to talk about. And I passed your book along to my mom. She read it in a day. And so I'm hoping people are really getting something out of your story.
I'm also doing a book giveaway. I don't know when this episode's
Yeah,
airing.
a couple weeks. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing a book giveaway. So it's kind of like two birds with one stone for me. I'm looking for anonymous divorce letters to Dear Northstar Divorce.
Okay.
And I'll explain what that is in a minute.
Okay.
And what I want, I don't need your name. I don't need anything. I just want a letter about something you're struggling with or something you need advice for, like a Dear Abby. But Northstar Divorce is going to give you, which is me, the perspective all about focusing on what's best for the kids.
Yeah.
And I'm going to choose my favorite letter and they'll get a free book.
Oh my gosh. Awesome. Fun little giveaway. Great. Well, this is like I said, this is kind of a new topic for me because I don't have personal experience like relationship wise for me. But if you
Thank
think about
God.
it, half of us
Yes.
either are going through a divorce, have gone through a divorce, and the majority of us either know somebody like a close family member or we're children of divorce or have friends who have gotten divorced. So it's one of those things that touches all of us, as ugly and maybe not so pleasant as it is to talk about. But just like anything else in life that maybe is difficult, we have choices in how we handle it. So I really loved, when we spoke, I really kind of wanted this to be its own episode because you coach people going through divorces.
Yes.
So let's just start there. Like do you talk to people like as they're maybe deciding on divorce or were they already there? Like what is your process?
So I think we need to go back a little bit.
Okay.
I think we always need to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you a little bit about my story and how it relates to divorce, and then I'll take you to what I do with clients because that's really important. But I think you need to understand where I came from.
For sure.
You're so right. Who wants a divorce, right? Like people always think when I tell them I'm a relationship and divorce coach, I'm like an advocate for divorce, which I am not. I love marriage. I love romance. I love love. I'm happily remarried. One of the things which you'll hear in a minute that I do with couples is I try to see if they can figure it out to stay. That's one of the sessions I do. But without going into too much detail about my story, because it's in my book, I did not want to get divorced. Who does?
Right.
My life on paper was gorgeous, and I had 3 little boys, very close in age. We built our custom beautiful home, like designed from the ground up, lived on my parents' land. It was so idyllic, and there was no bruises, there were no affairs. It was just this quiet secret that a lot of people don't talk about, and I actually believe it is a form of abuse and it's neglect. There was just emotional neglect and loneliness. And now that I'm doing this for a living, I see it everywhere. The common manifestation we hear is we feel like roommates. We feel like ships passing in the night. We get busy, we have life, we have kids and work and bills and house and all this stuff. And the couple doesn't take the time for like the partnership.
Sure.
So long story short, I went through about 6 years on and off of marriage counseling, and I am very good at communicating. And I would tell my then husband how I felt and how I wanted to connect more and how I wanted to feel like we were like partners and teammates. And I wanted to go deeper. I wanted physically and sexually more. I wanted intimately and mentally and emotionally more and spiritually more. And he was just like, that's not who I am. Like, I don't understand what you want. I'm fine. And every time I would come to him and tell him how I felt, his answer was always like, I'm fine. I'm happy. I don't know what's wrong. And he would go with me to therapy. But the problem was that it felt like he couldn't hear me when I was telling him how I felt. And I got to a place where I stopped using my voice.
Yeah.
And that's a really crappy place to get to. And I was surprised because I thought I used it all the time. But I would be about ready to tell him something, and then I would remember how he's going to respond, and I would just stop saying it. And through a long period of all that back and forth, I got to a place where I fell out of love. And when I finally got to the place where I couldn't do it anymore, he was like, "Oh, you're serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've been serious for a really long time." And we have a son who has pretty scary medical stuff. So that also weighed on it, but it was not the reason by any means.
Sure.
It was heartbreaking. It was excruciating. It was heartbreaking. My family was not excited about it. Um, there was a lot of disapproval. There was a
Yeah.
lot of pain. It was, as you know from the first part, I've gone through a lot, and it was the most painful thing I've ever gone through.
And that's saying a lot. That's saying quite a bit. And how much of the pain that you went through was a feeling of failure? Because nobody goes into a relationship, especially a marriage, thinking that it's going to end,
Yeah.
and when you reach that breaking point, how much of it is dealing with the failure part of it?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's something I really love talking about, and it's because of this. I don't consider the divorce a failure,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a language. It's something I want people to change, especially if there's children involved.
Yeah.
And it's because of this. My marriage was not a failure. During that marriage, we had great times. We enjoyed lots of memories. I have great memories. He was a great human. I wouldn't have chosen him if he wasn't. He wouldn't have chosen me. And we created 3 beautiful humans. And they are our heart and our soul. And I cannot allow people who work with me to call their marriage a failure if there are humans that were created from it. So my husband, which is, someone gave me that term, husband, he was my husband. He calls it a failure. He considers it a failure, but I don't. I refuse to. I think our marriage was a wild success. Unfortunately, we were not able to stay where we needed to be and grow as a couple. But as parents, we're doing great, and we're going to get to that. The pain I had was knowing what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't black and white. There wasn't, like, I wish there was something horrible that happened so I could say, "Oh, see, I can go."
Yeah.
It was just this feeling of, I'm going to stay for the kids. I'll just wait till they're all gone. I'm so lonely. I thought that love was supposed to feel different. I thought that I was supposed to be wanted. I thought, all
Yeah.
that stuff that nobody wants to talk about because it's embarrassing. I was struggling with. If you don't mind, I would like to read from my first HuffPost article.
Yes, please do.
So in 2016, which was right after, like, the year I made the decision before to end the marriage, I wrote this article. This is exactly what happened. I was at my driveway of my beautiful house that we couldn't afford, waiting for my kids to come off the bus. And I was on my phone, and I wrote in my notepad on my phone 10 things to be grateful for a messy divorce, because our divorce got messy.
Mm-hmm.
And from my book, I look for gratitude. And so they were like sarcastic, like I'm working my ass off and I'm losing more weight than I've ever, so like the things. And I sent it to HuffPost. It was when HuffPost was actually like run by editors and you could communicate with humans. And they said, "We want you to turn this into a blog." And I was like, "Shut up." And right. So I wrote this. It's called "My Light Went Out." I found myself Googling, should I stay for the kids? I begged God to tell me what to do. I cried daily as I walked around my perfect house. 6 years of marriage counseling, 3 beautiful boys, no black eyes, no adultery, no gambling, and I was dying inside every day. I never knew how lonely one could be in a marriage, lying in bed next to each other, not touching, on our phones, like passing ships. He was a kind man and a good father. How I hungered for connection and wanting. Quiet, clenching jaws and pleading ignored. But we had these little kids, and divorce would destroy them, and divorce would destroy him. So I would stay. I chose to stay over and over, and each day a little piece of me died. Sitting across from my 2 besties, they looked at me and they said, "Your light went out." And that was all I needed. I was trying to stay for the kids, for him, and in the process, I lost myself. Against the advice of family and friends, I left my perfect life and chose me. and then I go on.
Wow. I'm speechless in a sense that I think that's really difficult of a choice for people to make oftentimes because it feels selfish or it
Yeah.
can be construed as being selfish.
Yeah.
But at what point when, like you said, your light goes out, do you allow yourself to choose your own happiness over this relationship that you created together?
That's the biggest struggle, I think, in our society. We're told, like, no, you just suck it up and do, and I've heard people say they stayed until the last kid left, and then as soon as the last kid went to college, parents split up.
Yeah.
And I looked at these three boys and I thought to myself, what kind of a role model do I want to give them for what love looks like, for what a marriage looks like? Do they want to think that a marriage is going to be where you're just one person's taking care of everything, the other person's working, and there's no touching and there's no hugging and there's no connecting,
Yeah.
and you don't do this with your wife and you don't do this? And I was going to be giving my children a model of love that I would be very unhappy for them to have.
Sure.
That bothered me. The other thing was, when I wrote that article, and it goes on, I got a lot of backlash. I still do. I'm told on many like divorce sites how selfish I am and how wrong it is. Good news, don't care what other people think of me. But the other thing is, I truly believe that a parent cannot do a good job as a parent if they don't feel like they're living their truth and they're honoring who they are. And when I made the
Absolutely.
decision, go ahead.
You want both parents to feel fulfilled and happy, and how do you reconcile that then if one parent, your husband, was
Right.
feeling like, okay, everything's okay, why are
Yeah.
you doing this? But you're the one that's like, okay, I need more. This is not the way I want to spend the rest of my life. We've tried for 6 years. It's not working for me. How do you reconcile one of them saying it's okay and one parent being like, no, I can't live like this?
Such a good question. So something I would love listeners to hear who are currently in a partnership of any kind is, if one person in the partnership tells the other person in the partnership that they're not okay, the answer cannot be, but I'm okay.
Sure.
Because if you're in a partnership and one person's not okay, then the partnership is not okay, and you're a team and you need to work together and say, what do we need to do to address this?
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about it like I was the student in school. I was a high achieving student, and I hated when teachers would assign group projects. Did you not like that either?
No, because one of them would carry all the weight, and then,
Thank you.
yeah.
Right. And this is the only group project that I couldn't do alone.
Yeah.
And I tried to do it alone, and I did do it alone. And so while my husband, worked his ass off and really focused on money, 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 and I kept saying, this is not worth it. Like, let's sell this beautiful house. Let's get a small house. Let's redo our life. Let's focus on what matters. He didn't want that. That was not what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted connection, and I wanted to grow, and I wanted love, and I wanted a partner. And when life throws you curveballs, which it does, and you see what it feels like to have to face it alone, then you start to realize, well, what's going to happen when this happens? What's going to happen when that happens? When I get this diagnosis or that thing, I'm going to be alone doing this, and I don't want to do this alone. And I realized I needed a partner.
Exactly. How then? So who was it? Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin? What did they coin the term conscious uncoupling?
Yeah.
How then do you get to that point where you're like, okay, well, this isn't working. I know
Right.
that you want to keep pushing and that you're okay with
Yes.
this, but I'm not. How do we then do this in a civil manner or make
Right.
it, not so ugly? Because again, nobody wants to get to that point where they're saying, all right, we can't do this anymore, or I can't do this anymore. How do we make this the best possible situation in a situation that's not ideal?
So this is where I get really excited. I was one of those people that walked around forever going, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like, no clue. Decades and decades. I would beg people to tell me, how did you figure out what to do with your life? I knew what I was good at. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I connect with people. I help people. But I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And then this trauma happens, and I don't want it to happen. And it's, for me, the biggest challenge of the divorce was I don't get to be with my kids 100% of the time. And that's like, there's no amount of how well I can behave that makes up for that. Like, just, there's no picture I'm painting of divorce that's like, it's amazing. It's not. It sucks. There's parts of it that suck. But I refused to allow that to be my story. And what I was hearing was, oh, don't get divorced. Your kids are going to be messed up and they're going to need to be in therapy forever and they're going to hate you and it's going to be miserable and you're not going to be able to talk to anybody and everyone's going to hate each other. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I mean, at the time it was 2015. I'm like, there has to be a different way. And I knew this guy on Facebook. His name was Scott Simon, and he became my soul brother. And the universe told me on the inside, you need to reach out to this person who you've never spoken to. And we ended up talking for hours one night. He was known as the happily divorced guy because he was doing it in a way that I really wanted to do it. And he's, for my podcast, In Your Corner of Divorce, he's episode 7, and it's a great listen, especially if you want to understand the whole concept. But he basically said to me that sailors, when they're lost in the dark and they cannot find their way home, they look up to the North Star to figure out how to get home, and then they can go based on focusing on that. And he said that my children would need to be my North Star, and that every decision I made going forward would be based on what is best for them. And I explained this concept to my husband, and he liked it so much that he ended up getting a tattoo with me that said North Star. He has 0 tattoos. It's his only one he'll ever get, I'm sure. And
so as you guys were breaking up, you get a tattoo together.
Yeah, to remind each other, this is what we need to focus on. Because here's the deal. The legal process was miserable.
Yeah.
And one of the things I do with my clients is I help them figure out how to walk through that in a way that's not miserable. And I'll get to that in a minute. But so we told our kids about the North Star, and we told them that they're our North Star. And we made conscious choices. We sold our house. We moved to a really cute neighborhood 4 blocks away from each other on purpose.
Yeah.
Because kids are exhausting and hard to raise, and they forget things, and we want to go back and forth. And we wanted to create a balanced life for both of us, where we could start over. The actual legal process was the hardest, probably because I was in a lot of emotional pain and I didn't want to deal with anything that was in front of me. So I was just like, I just wanted to be over with. And I made really bad decisions, which is what I'll get to and what I do today.
Yeah. Yeah. So what bad decisions?
So many.
So that's just in the legal process part of it.
Yeah. Not even just that.
I mean, it's crazy. It's not as easy as just saying, okay, it's over. It's over. Let's, split up. There's all of the money, and
we're dismantling.
It's got to be complicated. I mean, each divorce that I've experienced with either friends or family members has been very different. Whether there's kids involved, whether there's money involved, whether there's prenups involved, a lot of paperwork and splitting stuff up. And I imagine it would probably be a lot easier if there wasn't all of that. But so that's something that you help your clients with then, is trying to figure out the logistics of it.
So here's what I do. I have 3 different programs. The first one I got is a lot of people come to me because they know I'm divorced and I'm doing it well. I'm kicking ass. We are working really hard. 90% of the time we get along. We have a few issues that always will come up and we deal with them. But our kids are happy, and I think we're doing a great job. So what happens is I'll get a private message from somebody saying, I don't know what to do. Do you know a good marriage counselor? I don't know can we talk? And that's called figuring it out. So I do a session called Figuring It Out. I either do it one-on-one or I do it with the couple, depending on who knows what. Basically, I tell them I'm not a therapist. I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been to all those people. And what I wish they would have done is just sat me down and asked me some really clear, uncomfortable questions instead of beating around the bush of everything.
Yeah.
And if you're at the place where you're reaching out to someone like this, you're already looking deep. So I ask them really uncomfortable questions. If we're doing it together, they fill it out before we do our virtual meeting. And then I say to them, we're going to have a really uncomfortable call right now. And I basically read them each other's answers. And I lay out the facts of what they have in front of them. And I tell them, even if 1% of each of you wants this marriage to work or is not ready to give it up, then you should not give up.
Right.
Then these are what the things you should do. And I tell them, because people have this misconception, like, this is too hard, we should just end this. And they don't understand that's going to take just as much, if not more work, to deal with for the rest of your life. Because if you have kids, you're together till death do you part. I'm sorry. Like, not till 18, till you die.
Yes.
Right? There's no way around it. So you're going to work with this person one way or another. Let's look at the facts. And I encourage them, like, if there's 1% of each of you that wants to make this work, then I will give you some names of people that I think are awesome at this. And you need to work your butts off and talk to each other and be uncomfortable and fight together through this.
Would you say a lot of the people that that reach out to you that do this initial session have that 1% on each side?
I would say about 50%, and then they go off, and then of those, I'll hear from them again.
Yeah.
Especially if there's infidelity.
But you can't, but then you can't say that you didn't try, or.
I think there's a number of really big deals that people worry about. So if you're not like a psychopath, let's just talk about regular people that are like married and considering not staying together.
Yeah.
The fears are the kids going to be okay? That's the number one fear. Am I going to walk around with regret for the rest of my life? How are we going to financially do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And am I going to be alone? Those are like the 4 biggies that everyone is worried about.
Yeah, sure.
And so I help them address all of those. And so at the end of that figuring out session, I give them options. I think my job is, I never tell someone what to do, ever, ever, ever. I tell them, based on my experience, these are the options I see that you guys have to choose from. Go talk, reach out to me, and let me know what you want to do. I'm happy to help in any way. So that's figuring it out. Then I have something that I love called nuts and bolts. Okay. So let's say you guys decided you were not going to stay together. And whether you never talked to me or you heard I do this, and we do this session, they have questions to do before. And I ask things that are really important to put in the shared parenting plan, which is like the document, not about money, the document about how are you going to take care of these kids for the rest of your life together, and what's it going to look like. And it's not legal advice. It is really important things that I found the hard way that have to be in that document if you want to make a Northstar divorce, and you want your children to be put first, and you want future situations to not have big issues because you're dealing with it right now together with both of you in the same vision.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's basically envisioning what your breakup is going to look like.
What do you want it to look like for the kids?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And really, the thing that I think is so important that couples cannot even fathom is, one day, if you guys are with other people, those other people are going to have their own ideas about what your divorce should look like. And if you don't write it down in a document signed by a judge in concrete, you will not be able to follow it if one of you is afraid of that other person or doesn't want to rock the boat.
Oh my gosh, that's so complicated.
So think about it. So here's an example. Okay.
So you have to envision like a future relationship you haven't even had yet.
Yes. And here's what I want to empower everyone to hear. So, and I tell this to my clients, because this is not for the faint of heart. Like my coaching is called In Your Corner coaching. Like I'm in a boxing match. Like, First of all, if you're not willing to fight for your kids, don't even come near me. Right. So if your goal is to get money, we're not going to work together, because the goal isn't about winning. The goal is about how can we set this up so the kids win. Yeah. The kids don't want this. They don't want this. So let's make it as easy as possible for them, with the understanding that there's going to be pain and challenges. Well,
sure. There's emotions involved. Yeah,
of course.
Absolutely. So, I mean, none of it's going to be easy.
I'll give you an example of something that is really important. So For example, one of the things that my family struggles with that we did not put in the document, but we discussed, but did not write down. And this is how I learned, I always share my mistakes because that's how we all learn. Yeah. Is one thing that was really important to our boys was they wanted to have dinner alone on their birthday with just their parents and their siblings. Mm-hmm. Okay. And in my vision, I imagine, and I still do, and I believe it's going to happen one day, like a big, huge table one day when everyone's grown up and everyone's and blended and everything comes with potluck, and we all sit together and we welcome everyone, because you can all sit together for 2 hours and behave, right? Yeah. So kids don't have to go back and forth. But in the present time, my kids wanted dinner alone. And my husband and I said, sure, no problem. Not only that, we will do other special things, but we didn't write it in the document. comes along down the road, another partner, and my husband's partner has a different idea of what divorce looks like. And based on what her experience is with her co-parent, and nothing ill to her, just this is just her story, that's not how you do divorce. And it's become such a massive issue that there's been therapists involved and mediators, and my kids are crying and begging, and it's exhausting. And this is literally we have two areas we fight about, this and money. And that's only like 10% of the time. And what I tell my clients is, you can't imagine right now, and in no offense to gender roles, but it's usually the husband, new female partner that is threatened by a Northstar divorce and doesn't like the idea of the husband and the wife, the ex-wife hanging out together. And what I would tell any clients is, you need to protect your relationship with your children as sacred. And when you are ready to meet a new person, you say to them, hey, new person, I would like you to know that if you'd like to be part of my life, this is what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
My ex-wife and I get along. Please don't be threatened by that. If you have an issue, let's talk about it. I'm here to walk you through that. It's probably weird looking, but we are there for each other. If one of us needs something, our kids are number one. We will do alone things. We will do together things with you, but you have to respect this. And
so being like
told,
very upfront right from the
yes,
beginning.
Yes. And look, if you've just come from a marriage that didn't work out, why not try it differently? Why not try communicating really clearly what you need in a new relationship? So
right. I always find that really interesting in life in general. Doing things that we know aren't going to work or that are really super painful, at least not trying to create a different way to do it. Because yes, it's going to be painful no matter what, but is there a way to ease this a little bit? Is there a way to make this just a little bit more simpler? And I mean, that goes for anything, really.
Right. And here's the deal. So I started off doing really cool, like questionnaires, anonymous questionnaires with adult children that grew up in a divorce home.
Oh, interesting.
And children in a divorce home, but the adult children talked way more, obviously. Yeah. And they should tell me anything because it was anonymous, and they all consistently said the same thing. My parents couldn't stand each other. They couldn't be in the same room. They wouldn't come to celebrations. When I was getting married or had a baby, I was so tense. How am I going to make them all work together?
Yeah.
They wouldn't, they always put me in the middle. They always talk negatively about each other. And the same thing over and over and over. And I originally thought going into this business that I was going to be helping the kids. Like, I'm going to be helping make sure the kids don't get hurt. And what I found from those people who told me, it wasn't just the kids that grew up. They were in relationships that they harmed other people because they were hurt. Mm-hmm. They, as a parent, harmed their children because they don't know how to do this. They harm their future spouses and anyone around them. And it's generations of harm because two people who made the decision to no longer stay together could not also make the decision to get over their crap and take care of their kids.
So we all have choices to make in how we handle
Which is what you
things
said in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, my podcast is Life on Purpose. We all have a choice in how we handle the things that are not only beautiful and wonderful, but also the things that are really crappy, because we don't go through life without something crappy happening.
Of course.
And you have a choice on how you're going to handle it. And that includes, unfortunately, like we said at the beginning, divorce, because it's inevitable. As sad and as crappy as that is, there's a huge amount of the population that goes through it. And so if we've got this big of and I don't want to say divorce problem, but this big of a chunk of the population that is dealing with this, like you said, why not try to find a different way to do it? And so to break that cycle.
I honestly believe, and I'm not just saying this, I honestly believe that for people who are going through divorce, or even people who are post-divorce and realize they're doing it in a way that's harmful, that if they make the decision, it's a choice, to change the way they're behaving, and there's work to be done to get there, that we can change the landscape of divorce for generations to come. And I think what people get so afraid of is they're like, oh, that's going to make divorce attractive. And I'm like, no, relationships are going to end regardless of how it's going to happen. What you do after that decision And even if you didn't want the divorce, right? So regardless of how the divorce happens, we need to focus on the future, right? So people always come to me, the clients, and they don't want to talk about the story, about what they did and she did and he did. And I'm like, stop talking about the story. Like, tell me one time, we're done, because the decision's been made. Let's walk through the pain. The
Yeah.
only way out is through. Do the hard work, which is what I do in the 5-session work, like my boot camp, and get to a place where we get to imagine, where you get to imagine, what do you want your life to look like?
Mm-hmm.
How do you want your children? So I make them do this really uncomfortable exercise where I make them write a letter from their children. So picture your 3 children, picture them as adults, like in their 20s and 30s, and you have to write a letter from each one of them, like with their voice in your mind, to you, complaining about how you totally trashed their childhood because of how you handled yourself with a divorce, how you always talk poorly about their dad, how you never would show up at a game if he was there, how you made him feel crappy about, all of it, like the ghost of Christmas past.
That is insanely brutal.
So they have to do that. And I'm like, how'd that go? And then they're like, it was awful. Then we go through a session about forgiveness. And that doesn't mean that we trust the other person or that we love. I said, you're about to be a Grammy award-winning actor.
Yeah.
And this is about showing up with a smile and shutting up, right? Like, how hard is that to do? You don't have to sleep with the person ever again. Like, you're not living with them. Your job is just to show up and shut up and smile, right? And so then I make them do a letter from those same kids as adults, as if they made the decision to show up, shut up, smile, and behave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they never made them feel bad about what happened at their dad's house or their mom's house, that they never put them in the middle, they never emotionally vomited on them and complained and said, oh, I would be able to do that if your dad didn't do this, and
Yeah.
none of that. And they get to choose, which life do you want to create?
Right.
Up to you.
I like that envisioning part of it. So, in my coaching practice, we do a lot of envision work where, we don't work a lot. We may go backwards a little bit and see kind of like, okay, where's the problem? Where did the challenge come from? But from that point on, we look ahead. Okay, where do we want to get to? And so I appreciate that envisioning part of it. As brutal as it is to have to write those letters. Oh
I
my
like
gosh, I
brutal
can't
work.
imagine.
So, yeah,
It made me tear
when
up a
you
little
work with
bit.
me, they have to do work before every single session when we do the 5 sessions, because I want them to understand you are in control. So you might not have been in control in your marriage or how the divorce happened. You are in complete control, even if your other person does not want to participate in this. You can still have a Northstar divorce, even if the other parent is like, no, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
because you get to decide, do I want to ever talk negatively in front of my children about their parent? So I have only 2 rules if you're going to work with me. You want to know what they are?
Let's hear them.
Okay. So the first one is so obvious, but you're not allowed to say anything negative about the other parent ever, no matter how you feel. Go talk to somebody else, not near your children.
Mm-hmm.
There's been studies that show that it's like child abuse to say to your child something mean about their other parent. And
I imagine like a child knowing that I am half mom and I am half dad. Mom or dad is saying something negative about
yeah,
mom or dad. That's half me. I am
yes,
half of that person. What does that say about me? And I
yes.
can imagine that just feeling really
Horrible.
horrible.
And the other thing is, the people are so worried about when I bring this to them, like, well, they're not going to know how horrible. I'm like, look, they're going to figure it out as they grow up on their own. Let them have that experience themselves.
Kids are
They don't
smart.
need, right? They don't need their parent to put down their other parent ever. That doesn't mean if your child comes to you and complains about something, you can't be empathetic and listen and ask them what they think they should do and give them support. But we don't say anything negative, and that includes if family or friends are around the child and they're saying something negative and they don't think that the child's listening because they're on digital, they're always listening. So that happened with my son. And he called me hysterically on FaceTime one night. And he said, he was with his dad and his dad's family. And while his dad never said anything negative, his aunt was looking at pictures of family, and they saw a picture with me in it. And they said, we need to delete that one. And my 8-year-old heard, you want to delete my mom.
Yeah.
And he was hysterical. So my other rule with that is you're not allowed to say anything negative, and you need to shut it down if you hear anyone else. And I tell clients right away.
Yeah.
That one makes sense. But the other one is really hard for people to do, especially when they're angry at each other. And imagine there wasn't COVID and we actually had activities to go to. You must sit in the same section as your co-parent at all games, concerts, graduations, events, plays, anything.
Tell me the purpose behind that one.
Okay, so just so you know, when I tell people, they think I'm asking them to like give up carbs. Like I'm like, look, you're gonna be okay. Like first of all, you're in public, so nothing physically can happen to you. Like
Right.
no one's gonna hurt you, right? I'm not asking you to sit on his lap or her lap. I'm asking you to sit in the same general section. It could be in the same row, a row behind each other, a couple seats apart. So when your son or daughter, for example, is at bat and they make it to first base, they're gonna look for 1 second in the stands for their parents, and it's not fair to them to have to look in one place and another place because you're so selfish and immature that you can't sit near each other so your kid can find both of your faces.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I wasn't sure where you were going with that one with the same section, but that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about what is in the best interest for the kids,
Mm-hmm.
not you. It doesn't mean you have to like it. Like,
Yeah.
who cares if you don't like it? You're not going to die. Right?
Did you die?
But did you die? I want that shirt so bad, but did you die? Right?
Exactly.
So
As much
up
as
to
you've been
them.
through, you need that t-shirt.
Yeah, but did you die? And so, I mean, I know parents who are doing this so well. So Scott Simon, the one who talked to me about everything and taught me, him and his co-parent, and he did not want the divorce, but they are best friends today. And they've gone on vacations together. Every Sunday they have a night where they switch kids and they have a special alone night. I have a friend who does every Sunday dinner with the original 4 people. I am doing baby steps to get there because I want that so badly because I know it's possible.
Sure. And I feel like at one point you used to like each other, right? Don't you have to remind yourself, okay, I used to like this person. Can I not get to a point where we can at least be friendly?
Right. And here's the deal. All you're asked to do is be kind. Like pretend that this person wasn't someone you used to be married to. Regardless of what they did or didn't do, our job in life is to be kind and respectful to people. And if our job is to be a role model to our kids, we can't show them. This is a person that you stood in front of one day and said, I want to have babies with you. I want to create a life with you. I want to die next to you. Yeah. It didn't work out. Okay, boo-hoo, let's get over it. And now let your kids have a good life where both parents are there as a team and loving you.
Sure. Wow. I mean, it's something as complicated as this can boil down to something as simple as just being kind and respectful.
And here's what I want to say to, I know that people get really nervous about the idea of significant others and how they're going to handle this.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say, especially if you don't want to have another divorce, right? Why would you want to be in a new partnership with someone who cannot respect what your children need? If they cannot respect what your children need and they don't trust you, that's a really good indication that that's probably going to end up being a total crap show.
Sure. I mean, they're an extension of you.
Yeah. And if you're saying to them, look, I know this is not like normal, air quotes, but this is what we're doing because our kids are happier when we get to show up for them and we're not pretending, no one's confused that we're together because we're not. Right. But our kids don't have to deal with our tension and angst. And I've talked to counselors at school and psychologists and high conflict parent coordinators, and they are like, not only is this so damaging, it literally creates children that grow up to be adults that have mental disorders because their parents were so harmful to them.
I would imagine the coping mechanisms may be a little hindered as well, growing up as adults. Yeah. The patterns that it creates can be, like you said, go on for generations after that.
Yes.
And so we're not doing anything normal right now anyway. We might as well try divorce differently.
Right. And here's the deal. Like, we get to acknowledge and give them permission to be human. This is hard. Like, it took me 2 years of post-divorce of faking it till I made it, to
Yeah.
not like want to throw up when we were all together, like
Yeah, sure.
Halloweens and smiling. But I don't want to miss a Halloween. You only get a certain amount of Halloweens before they even want to hang out with you ever again. So
Well, and I think that's important. You said at the beginning, it's not going to be easy. Making these
no,
choices isn't easy, but it is about making the choices, like consciously making those choices to make this work and to give your children the best possible life given the situation.
and sending the video birthday message to their other grandparent and picking out a Father's Day card and a birthday card, because my responsibility is to raise
Mhm.
good humans,
Mhm.
not to score keep and get back at somebody. And kindness begets kindness.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
always tell people the high road is very roomy because there's not a lot of people up there. So
So
Michelle Obama
true.
was right, so take it. Like, when they go low, we go high. I mean,
Exactly.
it's not
Exactly.
easy.
No, and I think that was important, an important thing for people to hear too. It's going to be hard work.
Oh my
I mean,
Lord.
anybody, like I said, I don't my husband's going to have a heart attack when he hears this episode, by the way. You're doing an
Why?
episode on what? What
Is
are
he
you
is he
thinking?
gonna be nervous?
He better not
You guys
be.
are awesome.
He knows I like him, right?
You do like it. Do you happen to know the three biggest complaints of, so I did an anonymous survey of couples who considered divorce but stayed together.
Yeah.
Do you know there are three big issues? Communication's not one of them. It wasn't on the list because that's like the solution was
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
So this is people who have children. What are their three big argument issues stuff?
Money,
Money was one.
um sex,
Sex was number one.
third one. And it's not communication.
Mm-mm.
I don't know.
Kid stuff, like anything that
Oh,
like
kids.
kids.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So money and kids were like the 30% each.
Yeah.
88% of couples, of the individuals that wrote, said sex,
No way.
but nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, of course not. Of course
Yeah.
not.
So that's a big issue too.
Wow.
I know.
I would not have guessed that.
Well,
I mean, I
because
guess maybe, but
think about it. When you
yeah.
were, how old were you when you met your person?
21, 20,
Right.
21. We were
Right.
young.
So
We were really
yeah, I
young.
was 24.
Yeah.
These are the questions that we asked. What does he do? What does she do?
Yeah.
Where's their family from? Do they want kids? Where do they
Right.
live? No one says, like, how do they deal with stress? What's their sexual appetite like? Like, you don't talk about these things because you don't know in your 20s. Who knows these things?
Oh my God, no. And you would never dream of asking.
No,
I
but
feel like
now I do.
relationships in general, like our relationship has changed completely since when we first met to now. Because when you first meet, you don't really know how to ask for what you want. And any
You were
general.
a baby.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
And like neither of us came from particularly great relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, my parents were split up when my dad took his own life, and then my mom got remarried, and I mean, their relationship was fine for a while, and then they got divorced when I was an adult. But his parents went through a divorce when he was 11, and there was a lot of tension there, and so neither of us
And
had
why
this.
was there tension for him? Has he explained it to you?
Um, yeah, they didn't get along. It
Right.
wasn't pretty.
There's only one reason why people don't get along
Yeah.
after they made a decision to get divorced. Do you know what it is?
What's that?
They're selfish.
Yeah. Just to make the choice to get along. Right.
Right. Who cares? Like, what? So, yes, we know you don't like each other like that. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. But you have kids together. So
Sure.
shut up and smile and behave.
And it's so crazy because can you imagine divorced parents doing that in the 90s? I think it was in the 90s when they.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I mean, or even now. I mean, I can't even tell you how many
I
clients
feel like
have.
it's like new age divorce we're talking about.
It is.
It's like a
Think
totally
about it.
new
I mean,
concept.
think about it. We can literally.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if parents could sit at a baseball game
Mhm.
or at a flute concert, and then after they could say, hey, you guys all want to go out for ice cream, and you go together, and they get to have their two favorite people in the world
Yeah.
for like 20 minutes together for ice cream, no tension, no why didn't you send this, why didn't you do that,
Sure.
and then peace out, go back to your home, see you in a couple of days, bud, and that's it.
And that's it. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I know one thing that each of us when we got married knew was that we did not want it to be what we had as kids,
Which is what?
which is, his parents not communicating, him spending most of his time with one parent and not the other. And then me, like, my memories are very different. So I was very young when my parents were back and forth, and then my dad passed away. But I do remember enough to where, when they separated, I was at his place for a while, and, at my mom's for a while, and kind of switching off, and there being tears and just them being very sad. It wasn't hostile by any means, but just very sad.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling sad for them. I don't ever remember feeling sad for myself, but I remember feeling sad for them.
You probably had no other way of knowing of how
No,
you
I
should
was, like I
know.
said, I was really young. And I mean, I think about it differently now as an adult and being married
Right.
with kids, but at the time those were my emotions, just being really, really sad.
And I mean, I truly, I'm not being ridiculous. Who thought I was going to get a divorce? No one thinks those things.
No,
Even
no.
though the statistics are 50% of marriages end in divorce,
Yeah.
I still didn't believe that was ever going to happen to me. And when it did, of course, I didn't want to have that happen.
Yeah.
And, to this day, there are people in our world around us, like in our little world around us, that have ideas of what happened that are not accurate, and judgment. And what I really got to learn through that, because I got to a great place with my parents about it, we had to get through it, is I needed no one else's approval. Like,
Yeah.
I was the only one who got to do this work. I had to stand in front of the mirror and brush my teeth. I had to lay in that quiet bed alone. And, today, the partnership I have with my husband, and, that didn't start off well between my husband now and my husband.
Yeah.
Because I fell in love with my current husband while the end of my marriage was happening. And I was very vocal about it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't lie about it. And whether my husband believes me or not, I literally never touched another person. I felt very strongly about not doing that. I think that, and this is just my opinion, that, like, if you want to physically be with another person, then do that after you're not, like, with the other. Like,
Yeah.
what's
Why
the
can't
point?
you wait just a little bit longer?
Right.
Sure.
So, and, Jonathan, who I'm married to, and I made the decision that we wanted to be together, but we were in the middle of our unraveling of both of our marriages, which was very messy, right?
Yeah.
And it was not optically good. And there's a lot of judgment around, but I don't feel anything yucky because I behaved well, even though no one else believes that, because I know my truth.
Sure.
And today, those two men can sit at a soccer game next to each other and be like, hey, what's up? Like, they're not gonna, like, hang out, but
Right.
like, they're fine.
But they
Like,
can be cordial.
and they can be silly in front of, like they're fine because they're both being adults and they're
Yeah.
not being jerks.
Well, let's talk about then love after divorce.
Yes.
Because you wrote in your book that, you found your person, your soulmate, kind of the one person that you had been dreaming about since you were a kid.
Well, actually, you are the only person that's ever in my book that really knew the truth. And that is, and you called me out on it in our last episode,
Yeah.
and I was so impressed with you, that the love story in the book was not with another person, it was with myself.
Right.
And
Right.
that is my person. And so, yes, Jonathan is as close to a human embodiment of a person that is my person as possible, but we have issues galore. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
And my real person is myself. And so for people, whether they're in a marriage or not, if you don't get to that place, you're never going to be able to withstand the waves that are going to come your way.
Okay, well then let me touch on that. How much of you going through this divorce, really learning what your strengths were and not just how strong you were, and really falling in love with yourself even more, how did that change your relationship with, like, your new marriage? How did going through that make this one more solid, or make you more sure?
So much. Well, so number one is I found out that I'm okay on my own, no matter what. And so I no longer have to be afraid that, oh my God, what if this happens to whoever I'm with?
Yeah.
I became so aware that I had stopped using my voice in my first marriage, that, and Jonathan as well, that we are, like, very vocal in our marriage. Like, we once had a fight outside we live in separate houses in separate states, thank God. And I say thank God because our kids would not do well together in a same house, but I miss him completely. I love him and it's hard.
So you have you had a new age divorce and a new age marriage.
Yes, he lives in Virginia. I live in Ohio, and it's crazy. And everyone that hears the story is like, when are you going to get living in the same place? And I'm like, not for at least a decade.
Yeah.
So we were having we were putting the car together to go on a vacation with my boys, and we had like a soap opera style fight outside where like people could have gotten popcorn and folding chairs because it was so ridiculous. But when we fight, we are never mean to each other. We never say something that's hurtful, and we don't ever walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I found a partner. The universe brought me a partner who is willing to fight with me, and for us.
Yeah.
And if he would have one time in any of these fights said, I can't do this, I would have been like, peace out. I'm never talking to you again.
Yeah.
Because he knows how broken there's little, parts of my heart have been from my childhood. And he is just not willing to do that. Like, he's like, I will do whatever it takes to make this work forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so because the woman who married us, her name is Brenda. She does weddings, and she's also like our person that we go to for like our hard stuff. She said to us, because she's in a second marriage of successful 20 plus years, she said during our ceremony, do not look at this marriage as if it's your first marriage. Don't forget everything you learned from your first marriages, because you need that information to really make this one different and better. Mm-hmm. And so we don't shy away from all of that. So we talk about everything, and we talk about really uncomfortable things. And I'm not afraid of anything. Like, I'm not afraid to lose him. I'm not afraid to be on my own, because I am.
Yeah.
It's really empowering.
That's really interesting that you say that you have become so strong in the sense that you know that you'll be okay on your own, but you're choosing him. It's not, I don't need you, I want you.
Yes, that's what it is. I don't need him, I want him. And I've never let myself do that. Yeah. And I love him, and he makes me a better human. Mm-hmm. And he he's my FP, which is one of the questions we asked each other when we were going through our miserable endings was, who's your favorite person? FP, who's your favorite person? And he said, I feel like I'm supposed to say my wife at the time, but it's not, it's you. And I was like, yeah, same. Because we became like best friends. And I said, don't you think you should be married to your favorite person?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I was not married to my favorite person. Are you married to your favorite person?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, never. You're lucky. Most people are not, honestly.
Yeah.
They're like, no, my friend's my favorite person, or my best, I want the person that I'm walking through all of it with to be my human. Like,
yeah. No, that is true. Because you're going to spend a lot of time with this person, if this one's successful.
And you're not always going to
be with somebody you don't really like.
Right. And you're not always going to be as beautiful and strong and healthy as we are today.
Oh yeah. We've seen each other at our worst, for sure.
I'm doing a recording. Can I come down in a few minutes? Thank you. I love you so much.
Oh my gosh.
That's my little
Isn't this the beauty of like podcasting from home?
Yes, because we can.
I know my little guy's upstairs taking a nap right here. I'm like watching him.
Don't you love it? Yeah, so it's about making different choices, which is what you said from the beginning. It's all about our choices. And I find that to be sexy. Like, we get to choose how we want our life to be.
Well, not only that, it's very empowering, because I feel like, especially now, everything feels very out of control. Let's pair. I mean, I had a coaching call today, and it was very much about, listen, there's all this white noise out here. Let's focus on the things that we have control of. And even if it's something as complicated as your relationship with a former spouse, that sounds really difficult. And okay, I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, but it's a choice. Like you said, it's just about being kind and respectful, whether you want to or not.
Right. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as someone who was kind, or someone who was vindictive and always held things in and was angry? Guess who that hurts? Not only everyone else, but it also hurts ourselves. We get sick from it, right? So I don't want to carry so much stuff anymore. I want to be free.
I love that. I think that's a really great place to end too, that kind of advice. So
I'm so grateful for you. And I can't wait to have you on mine.
I know. So I think next week? week after.
Yeah,
I don't know, something like
we
that.
have it written down somewhere.
Awesome. Well, I hope that people got just as much out of this episode as they did the first one. And I'm so grateful that you came on for part 2.
Thank you.
And hopefully we get to talk again in the future.
Thank you. And I hope that people will check out In Your Corner Divorce podcast.
Yes. And your website.
Yeah, my website, inyourcorner.coach. Very strange. Yes.
Those complicated websites.
Yes, those complicated. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thanks, Carly. I appreciate it.